YouTube. Damn you, YouTube. Okay, we're live. We're live with another episode of BS Busters. Thank you for joining us. It's me, Mr. Red Fox, and I'm joined by...
Sure. Lemon Star, of course.
And...
Chrono Abominita.
And welcome to another BS Busters. Now, tonight we're talking, we're not going too in-depth. I mean, we might touch upon a little bit of Activision Blizzard bullshit later on, but right now we're going to talk about something that's great.
No.
Something that brings some good news to gamers. We're going to talk about the 30th anniversary of the Super Nintendo. Yeah! Arguably the last...
Now you're playing with superpower.
Yeah, arguably the Super Nintendo was the last 16-bit console to enter the market during the 4th gen. But you could say that they had some of the biggest impacts, because some of the biggest games, some of the most important games, really hit their stride on the Super Nintendo. So... without much ado, who wants to dive in first with their Super Nintendo memories? When did you get your Super Nintendo? What games did you have for it when it first came out? And what really kind of made your day?
Well, if anything, I remember I got mine on Christmas Day of the year it was released. And for me, the first games I had was, let's see, Super Mario World and... what was it? Oh, that was basically it, as far as I remember. But I gained a lot of other games too. At least two of my memorable ones I liked the most would be Legend of Zelda and Killer Instinct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I know it's not much, but if anything, I still own mine after all this time, even when I got the 64 and onwards. So I'm trying to think of what other things that you guys might be wondering about with this SNES. I mean, that I was going into the basics right now.
fair enough. I am Kadoshi. You want to go next?
That's Kenoshi. Oh, sorry. My memory with the Super Nintendo. I got the Super Nintendo Junior or whatever that small Super Nintendo was. That's what I got when I was a kid. I got let's see, the game I was excited playing was like Super Mario World, and remember also having Killer Instinct, the black cartridge. This was years later, but somehow, in some manner, I don't know how I acquired this, how this magically showed up at my house. I don't have it anymore, but Super Ghouls and Ghosts just magically appeared one day. It was just there. I played it. It's like, yeah, I can see why somebody got rid of this game. This game is hard as nails. God dang. And now there's obviously some games I didn't play until years later, until an emulator like Final Fantasy and Chrono Trigger. Two very fantastic games, Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger. Definitely one of the two best games of that era, RPGs of that era. There's also Mega Man X, which I was never good at. Never was particularly good at Mega Man games. But I mean, they were typically fun to play. And played some odd games. A terrible game, Bubsy.
Oh God.
Hey.
I had a flashback on that one.
Wait.
I had let's see, Toy Story, which is way harder than it needed to be. I don't know. I've mentioned this before on this podcast. That damned RC kart challenge.
RC Pro-Am?
Yeah, you have to get every battery. You have to get every battery in order to win the level. That level is so poorly designed. If you miss a single battery, you're done. That's it. You might as well just call it quit, because if you don't get every battery, it's pretty much over. And I also remember playing Home Alone. That was weird. It was a weird, this is a weird
It's
time
a
for
weird
video
game.
games. They made a license.
sure.
They made a licensed game out of anything. But Home Alone, that game, the first level was way harder than it needed to be. Like, everything in that game wanted to kill you. Everything was out for your ass. Like, you get, whether it be pillows or pigeons, everybody was out to kill you. So, and then I also remember Aladdin. That was a fun game. It's one of the really good licensed games, as well as Tiny Toons is also pretty decent. So,
That's fair. My introduction to the SNES was I was about to turn 5. I was 4. It was 1992, and I got the SNES for Christmas. And the pack-in game, because this was back in the day when almost every Nintendo console you bought had a pack-in game. The Switch is the first Nintendo console where it launches, and there's like nothing with the system. But the SNES came with a pack-in game, and the pack-in game for the first run was Super Mario World for that system. And Super Mario World was great. I would say it's one of the best 2D platformers Nintendo ever made. Still, even now. And I stand by that. Then for my birthday, let's see, Christmas of 92, so 93, my birthday was in February. I got The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. Now, you're looking at a kid who's like 5 years old trying to play that game.
You were probably lost as hex.
Oh yeah, because like my reading comprehension at that point was maybe a little bit beyond like at the level of a first grader, but there are words in that game that are well beyond a first grader, like telepathy and Sarasarala and agonym. Like it's like you really that game really encouraged me to become better at reading, because you can't play Link to the Past unless you're good at reading. Like if you don't like reading, you ain't playing Link to the Past.
You were thrown into the shark. You were thrown into the shark's end of the pool.
Well, there's just certain points of that game where if you can't read and like read the book and listen, talk to people and understand what they're saying, you're not going to be able to traverse the game, because there's events that you have to trigger. And you can't do that if you don't listen to what they tell you. But the big thing is that after that, I got Adventure Island, Super R-Type, what else? Final Fight, Batman Returns, the video game. Like I didn't have all the games, but I had a lot of really kind of easy to get into games. But the game that blew my mind was a game that came out a few years later, and I rented. I didn't own it. I rented Final Fantasy VI. Holy crap! That game was awesome. Here in America, Final Fantasy III. That game was awesome. Final Fantasy 3 blew my mind, and then I started digging to Square Enix. Well, at that time it was Squaresoft games. So I started playing RPGs on the system and Squaresoft games. So Breath of Fire 2, Final Fantasy 2, Chrono Trigger, and the rest was history. Uh, you know, I would say the Super Nintendo had one of the best libraries that Nintendo has ever had.
Oh yeah,
It was
that
hard.
was Super Nintendo,
It was the one with the
Sega
most variety for
Genesis.
sure.
Those are like the golden age of gaming.
Yeah, it had something for everybody. You know, like
I mean, it even tried to go into abstract games with something like the Super Scope.
well, I mean, that was just a peripheral game. Like almost all the Super Scope games were like demos with the Super Scope, and thank God that didn't take off because forcing people to spend $120 on a peripheral. I mean, Jesus. You would think after seeing Nintendo couldn't push the Super Scope, Sega would have been like, "Hey, man, maybe we shouldn't have all these fucking add-ons." But no, they kept on trying to
I
force
was
that.
gonna. I'm sorry, I'm glaring at you a little because some of those are not terrible, but then again they were not big shots. I mean, I played the Yoshi one. I got the original, and I even tried out that. And this is a weird thing. I actually tried out something that was Japan only, in a sense, where you're shooting at mechs.
Yeah, yeah. Battle something, Battle Storm, something like that. Yeah, those like
Yeah,
I'll keep it real. The SNES Super Scope games on the weren't that bad. I'm just saying that the idea of forcing someone of trying to force people to spend functionally at that point when the Super Scope came out, the Super Nintendo had dropped in price from $199 to like $149. Some places, if you got a bundle, like if they were, if they were trying to move units off the shelf, like $100, but then you had peripheral that was like, if not the same price as the console, a little bit below or a little bit above it, depending on what the price of the console was. That was that was a hard sell for people. And then you have to factor in that $149 even back then is like the equivalent of $330 now. So that was just a really hard sell. And then you also factor in, you know, it was just very expensive. Now, I'm not saying that the Super Nintendo didn't have great Super Scope games. Yoshi's Safari was okay. I think the mech games were a little bit better. Not the pack-in that came with the Super Scope. The Super Scope 6, I think it was called. But the two like games made by I want to say Treasure, not Treasure. Um, Intelligent Systems, I think.
mhm.
Those games are pretty good, but still not. I mean, they still aren't good enough for someone want to spend $129 plus, $60-$70 per cartridge. They weren't that good. And and they're legitimately good, but they weren't that good. But yeah,
Hey, it's progress.
the only game that I would say that like there was a peripheral that came out for it that was still pretty good is Mario Paint. Mario Paint was pretty good. Um,
Yeah, it's the computer. It's computer on your SNES,
yeah.
kind of.
So yeah, the Super Nintendo. I mean, the Super Nintendo had one of the best libraries I've ever seen. I'm not saying it was perfect. I'm just saying for a Nintendo console, it had one of the best libraries. You had beat 'em ups. You had 2D fighting games. You had racing games. You had
RPGs.
RPGs, which is my personal favorite. You had RPGs, you had platformers, you had
You had tactical
sports
games.
games. You had sports
Sports.
games. You had you didn't have as many. You didn't have any quality sports games as the Sega Genesis, but you did have a lot of the arcadey games on both systems. Like you like WWE wrestling, it was on the Super Nintendo as well. You liked WCW wrestling, it was on the Super Nintendo too. You like NBA Jam, it was there too. Mortal Kombat, it was there. Street Fighter, it was there. Like you had a lot of the same stuff on both systems.
You had a lot of variety.
Yeah. And, some multiplats were better on the Super Nintendo than the Sega Genesis and vice versa. Some multiplats were better on the Sega Genesis than the Super Nintendo. But you had a good amount of games. I would say that the Super Nintendo's strongest point, in my opinion, were the 2D platformers and the RPGs. Because I'm sorry, I was an RPG head. So for the Sega Genesis, for me, didn't have shit that I wanted. And I know some people say, what about Shining Force? Shining Force
I was about to
is
say,
okay.
Shining Force is
It ain't no Final Fantasy.
Yeah, it's not
an
Final
okay
Fantasy.
RPG, but
It's not Final Fantasy. Yeah.
It's not beating the king of RPGs back then.
I mean, even the weaker RPGs on the Super Nintendo were better than Shining Force. Like Lufia. Not Lufia 2. Lufia 2 is great. The first Lufia.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, there were some good JRPGs on the Sega Genesis. There was Phantasy Star 4. That's a great one. There was the Shadowrun on the Sega Genesis. What East was on both systems though. It was functionally the same game.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought I thought if anything, I thought that the East ran better on Sega's.
No.
On Sega's side.
No, East ran better on the Super Nintendo. The only difference is that Super Nintendo version was cropped for some of the cutscenes, but functionally, the Super Nintendo version is the better game.
Ah.
Yeah, it's one of those things. But the Super Nintendo was a great console, and it's hard to believe that the Super Nintendo is 30 years old. Now, I will say this much, though. It is amazing to me that the Super Nintendo, so many games that were on the NES that were brought over, the franchises were continued on the Super Nintendo, and you can see how a lot of games that kind of weren't really reaching their full potential on the NES, or maybe technological limitations were keeping them from making that game. Like, the idea was there, the execution just couldn't be there. The Super Nintendo enabled that. Like, you can see a lot of the design ideas in the original Metroid and Super Metroid, but it's so much better evidenced in Super Metroid than it was in Metroid. Because I'll tell people are like, hey, should I play the original Metroid? No, not on the NES. No. Play Zero Mission. It's much better. Super Metroid is great. What?
I was saying, boy, I heard that a mile away because if anything, the one thing certain games that were back then should always have in a sense to let you advance in some way is a map.
A save system and a map. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the original Metroid had neither of those. It had a password system and no map. So you had to make your own map.
I was going to say, Metroid and Legend of Zelda had both of those problems.
Well, the original Legend of Zelda had a battery save system on the Super Nintendo, on the NES. However, you could put in certain passwords as well, like a password as your name. You made your character that could give you a second quest. Like if you put Zelda in, it gave you a second quest. as your name instead of whatever. But you can kind of like not having a map in the original Legend of Zelda. You could kind of forgive that a little bit. I mean, you had a map in the manual, but not like a map in game. But Metroid, that game is so hard without a map, and even worse because it doesn't have a save. I'm like, and that password system's so damn convoluted. But they fixed all that with Super Metroid. It has a map, it has a save system.
Yeah.
Gives you multiple saves. I mean, literally, all that shit got fixed. Then there's better stuff.
Yeah,
like,
I was about to say that.
No, go ahead.
There's better power. I was going to say the power-ups were a lot more understandable, for one thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I bet you had a hard time trying to even figure out some of the stuff that you gain until you actually tried it. But at least in Super Metroid, they gave you something in clear English to understand what the heck did I grab.
Yeah. I mean, I think Super Metroid took a lot of stuff from Metroid 2 Samus Returns, and basically adapted that, a lot of the stuff in that. And then just a lot of like quality of life stuff. Like in Metroid 2, like you could only have one power up at a time. So like at a certain point, you had to have the ice ray, the ice beam, in order to freeze newly hatched Metroids because they're vulnerable to ice. But if you didn't know that and you picked up another beam weapon, you were basically SOL if they attacked you. You were like, oh shit, I'm about to get wrecked. I'm about to get my shit wrecked by Metroids. And you kind of had like Super Metroid let you basically have all of them, and you could like go into the screen and deactivate various beam upgrades if you so chose, or you could have all of them, and that's basically become an unstoppable destroyer towards the end of the game, just destroying everything. So yeah, Super Metroid was great. I love that game. And I don't. That definitely could not have been done on the NES. Like Link to the Past is I would say it is my favorite traditional Legend of Zelda game, and you couldn't have done that on the NES. Yoshi's Island, you couldn't have done that on the NES. Star Fox, you couldn't have done that on the NES. F-Zero, you couldn't have done on the NES. Donkey Kong Country. Donkey Kong Country. Donkey Kong Country 2. Couldn't have done that on the NES. Like the Super Nintendo was the evolution of
like the SNES was the evolution of so many games, right?
Yep. It was the evolution. It was like, because a lot of people didn't get a Nintendo Entertainment System until like 89, 88, after the NES had been out in Japan since 83, in America since 85, right? So like 3-4 years. And then Nintendo announces in 91, yeah, we're coming out with a new console. Then 92 hits, it hits the market, and people are like, why should we buy a new console? And then they drop all these games where it's like, well, shit, I gotta get it now.
Yeah, basically a game tsunami.
Yeah. And it was good. Like I said,
And
I love the Super Nintendo. It's my favorite system.
it's the system that brought a lot of people into gaming.
Yeah. Like I said, the Super Nintendo is my favorite Nintendo system. I love the N64, but the N64 has a really shitty RPG library. And I'm an RPG fanboy. But
I hate that controller, man. My controller does not hold up.
Normally I would agree with you, but there's certain games that I have played on the Wii Virtual Console with a classic controller, and it doesn't feel right playing N64 games without an N64 controller. It's like muscle memory. You have to play it with an N64 controller. Like Mario 64, playing Mario 64 without an N64 controller just doesn't feel right. Star Fox 64, same thing.
Yeah.
Those games were made for that controller.
Yeah, I do feel that way about Mario 64. It doesn't really feel right playing on modern controllers, but oh, that controller. Oh, every time I hold it, I just want to throw up. I'm sorry, I hate the N64 controller.
I understand, but yeah, that's the one thing that kind of brings it down for me in Legend of Zelda. That's what brings it down for me in that's the thing that kind of brings it down for me for the N64 is just like I love the N64. I like the kart racing games. I like the 3D platformers. I like the open world, the semi-open world games. I think some of the third-party exclusives on the N64 are superior for the N64 versus other systems, but fuck, there is such a small dearth of RPGs on that system, and most of them are not very good. That's the that's my only real complaint with the system. And if you like going from it's like going from the PS2 to the PS3. Like the PS1 had a fuck ton of JRPGs. The PS2 had not quite as much, but still a large amount of JRPGs. And then you go to the PS3 where there's just a very like the dip in the amount of JRPGs on the PS3 was a joke. And then you go from the PS3 to the PS4 where it's like aside from the big name JRPGs, it's down to practically nothing. Like most of the JRPGs are hitting the Vita and the 3DS.
Joke that it's like I was going to make the joke that it's like a roller coaster, only a terrible one.
It's all downhill. It's all down. There's no up. It's all down. So yeah, the SNES was great for JRPGs. I mean, great for JRPGs. The birth of so many franchises: Breath of Fire 2, Final Fantasy 2, Final Fantasy 3, Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, which
It's the insult.
It's not that bad. It's just the fact that Square Enix is like, you people are too dumb to know how to play RPG.
I'm sorry.
Like I'm offended.
But you have to admit it is the insults game.
That's what I'm saying. It's the fact that they're like, you're too dumb to know how to play JRPGs. That's basically what Squaresoft was saying. Oh, this market needs to be trained how to play a role-playing game. Okay.
Even though that you had kids playing D&D since the 80s, okay.
Yeah.
That's what your battle system is based off of?
We basically created JRPG. RPGs were created in America, but we don't know how to play role-playing games. Okay.
But I mean, you can even if you look into the history of Final Fantasy, they'll tell you it's like, yeah, we like the first Final Fantasy almost like rips off aspects of the names of various different monsters in D&D.
Go play Dragon Quest. And Dragon Quest, the first 3 Dragon Quest games, they steal wholesale from D&D. You go and you meet elves. There's a hobbit. There are dwarves. Everything's stolen from D&D, and I'm okay with that. But
yeah, I mean, I don't care.
I'm okay. I'm okay with it. But then for you to say, okay, you people are too dumb to know how to play RPGs. We need to train you. I'm like, man, that's offensive.
A natural one against a mind flare.
Yeah, and we didn't get Final Fantasy 5. We got Final Fantasy What's a mind flare?
4. I said that would be a natural one against a mind flare insult, right?
Yeah, because it's brainless. And then we got what else? What else did we get? We got
I would say
Lufia 1 and 2.
Did say that we didn't get Final Fantasy 5. We got Final Fantasy 4 and Final Fantasy 6.
Yeah, 4 and 6, but they messed up the numbering scheme, so it was 2 and 3. We didn't get Final Fantasy V. We got Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, which I think Final Fantasy V would have been the better game to bring over because Final Fantasy V is like even our Final Fantasy II was the dumbed down version of Final Fantasy II. It was easier, and there was a lot of content missing. Lufia 1 and 2, Secret of Mana. We didn't get Seiken Densetsu 3, aka Secret of Mana 3. We didn't get we got Front Mission, but we didn't get Front Mission Gun Hazard. It's just there's a lot of really good Super Nintendo games that never came to the US. Like they did we got 2/3 of the Quintet trilogy, aka Soul Blazer, Illusion of Gaia, and we were supposed to get Terranigma. It was translated, but they never brought it over.
It never came out.
Yeah, we got Secret of Evermore instead of that other game. Now, I don't have anything against Secret of Evermore. It's not a bad game, but Jesus, just kind of offensive, really. But whatever. So anyway, you guys have do you guys have some games that you just loved on the Super Nintendo? You were like, man, this game is the shit.
Oh,
When I was a kid, it was Super Mario All Stars.
Oh yeah,
You got all the nicer versions of the Nintendo games.
yeah, that was great.
I mean, Nintendo's capable of remaking their games and making their games look extra nice. They can't seem to do that anymore. What happened? What happened along the way?
I don't know. I have no idea. Here's what I'll say. There was a time when Nintendo did re-releases, and they actually made there was a time when Nintendo led with re-releases. Because don't forget, Super Mario All Stars was a compilation, an updated compilation of the original Mario games. And remember, the original, when it first came out, you got 5 games. You got the original Mario Brothers, like the one where you're underground hitting the shit underneath the blocks and stuff. And then you had Lost Levels, the original Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers 2, and Super Mario Brothers 3. And then they did a re-release of Super Mario All-Stars, and they added Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo. So you had 6 games for like $50-$60. And some of the later versions of Super Nintendo, that was a re-release. It was bundled in. So you get 6 games for like $50-$60. That was amazing with updated graphics. Although they kind of fucked up the graphics for Super Mario World because they just reused sprites from the other games in Super Mario World on the Mario All Stars for the 1.2 version. But it is what it is. But yeah, that was a great game. That was great. That was great. Any other games you guys are like, man, this game is the shit on the Super Nintendo?
Donkey Kong Country? That was good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Donkey Kong Country was great. Finding out that your dad was the original Donkey Kong and Cranky Kong, all he did was shit talk you the entire time you're playing the game. You beat the game, he's still talking shit at the end of the game. It's like, oh, it took you 6 hours to beat this game? Man, I could have done it in an hour. You're like, you old coot. Stop talking shit. I ought to beat your ass.
I was about to say, that was one of the funniest things I remember when I played Donkey Kong Country 1, 2, and a bit of 3. That he always was an a-hole to you, and you finally get to shut his trap up.
No.
In 3, at least. To a point.
Cranky will always talk shit till the end of time. That's what he does.
I said to a point because you at least you could at least beat him in a game, and and one up his rear end for all the insults he's giving you.
Yeah, that's Cranky's thing. He talks mad shit. That's what he does, and I'm okay with that. I mean, let's not forget, Donkey Kong is the original pseudo mascot of Nintendo. Like it was because remember, he was more recognizable than Mario initially because the game was called Donkey Kong. It wasn't called Mario. Mario didn't have a name. It was just called Jumpman. So and yet people kind of forget him now. They're like, Mario this and Link and Samus. It's like, yeah, but this shit. Look, this house was built by Donkey Kong. That was what really got Nintendo into the video game, like really kind of made them a major player. Because before then, they were doing like, penny like Game Watches and Game and Watches and like the card games and stuff like that, board games and stuff. But really, it was Donkey Kong that really kind of put them into it.
I was about to say some of those things you shouldn't sleep on, but
no, I've played Nintendo board games. I've played Nintendo Hanafuda games. I have like 18 Game and Watches, but none of that shit would matter if Donkey Kong hadn't come out. If Donkey Kong hadn't hit, all that other shit would have been just a blip on the road of history. Donkey Kong is what really, put him on the map.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Love me some Donkey Kong 1 and 2. 3, not quite as strong as the first two, but
3's
still
the
pretty
mixed
good.
bag.
I mean, some of the levels are good, some of the levels not so good. They kind of were running out of ideas at that point. But Donkey Kong 1 and 2, those games, those games can't be touched. Like, I would say that Donkey Kong 1 is a better platformer than Super Mario World. And Super Mario World is great. Damn near excellent. But Donkey Kong Country is better than that, which is hard to say. That was rare during their golden age, in my opinion. The 4th and 5th gen, that was rare when they were at their best. But anyway, I guess my I loved the beat 'em ups on the Super Nintendo. I think the Super Nintendo, like everyone likes to say, the Sega Genesis had great beat 'em ups, and I mean Streets of Rage 1 and 2 were good. I think 3, the American version of 3, is a little, eh. And Golden Axe is a good idea, terrible execution because the Golden Axe games are too goddamn hard. Yeah, I said it. Enemies rushing you, double teaming you. You miss one attack, they just destroy you. And don't ride on one of those animals because dudes will charge you and get on the animal and then kick your ass. Golden Axe is just almost unfair with how tough that AI is. But on the Super Nintendo, you had Turtles in Time, Batman Returns, Final Fight 1, 2, and 3. Let's see what else. Super Double Dragon, aka Return of Double Dragon. You had what else?
You had the
Sonic Blastman 2.
You had the variety of, okay, Sonic Blastman?
The first Sonic Blastman on the Super Nintendo sucks. Sonic Blastman 2, so much better. Captain Commando. Let's see, what else? You had Captain America and the Avengers, but that game is not really that good on the Super Nintendo, so I'm not counting it. What else? Oh, Battletoads Double Dragons, Battletoads Battle Maniacs. I mean, there's a lot of really good beat 'em ups on the Super Nintendo. And and don't get me started on the 2D fighters. Like really, the best home console version of Street Fighter is on the Super Nintendo. And I know what some people say. Well, it's also on the Sega Genesis. Yeah, but you have to buy a 6-button controller. Good luck asking your parents who just spent $50-$60 on a video game cartridge. Hey, I also need you to spend $30 on a controller. Yeah, good luck with that. Whereas everything you needed to enjoy Street Fighter came with your Super Nintendo. You had your 6-button controller with the 4 face buttons and L and R. There's your 6 buttons. There you go. Everything you need. Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3 on the Super Nintendo. They're all pretty good.
You mean the Genesis? The Genesis didn't have 6 buttons when it first came out?
No. They added a 6-button controller after the fact. When the fighting games came out. Because if you wanted to play a 6-button fighter on the Sega Genesis with the standard controller, you had to press the start button in order to basically switch your attacks between the 3 buttons, which is awkward as hell and makes a fighting game damn near unplayable. I mean, you're sitting there trying to play a fast-paced fighting game. You got to press a start button in order to switch between kicks and punches. That's just stupid. So, Sega released a 6-button controller that was like $20 or $30 after the fact. But if you have to release a 6-button controller after games that require a 6-button input after the fact, you fucked up.
$30, and that was back in the 90s. $30, that would have been a lot of...
Like 60 now.
A lot of money.
Yeah, it's like 60 now, yeah.
Like, ugh.
Yeah, so Sega, Sega kind of fucked up on that one. Nintendo right out the box.
Wasn't the sound quality in that game also pretty terrible too in the Sega one? I heard it visually looked better.
I mean, the only thing it had going for it was... The only thing that Street Fighter had going for it on Sega Genesis was you didn't have as much slowdown.
Yeah.
Because Sega had the overclocked processor. That's it. The Super Nintendo version, I'm just comparing those first editions, Street Fighter 2 and the Street Fighter 2 on the Sega Genesis. Both of those games, the Super Nintendo version had the slowdown, but you had the better sound chip. On the Super Nintendo, although the sound, it just depends. Really, it's going to depend on, do you like the Sega Genesis rendition of that music, or do you like the Super Nintendo version of that music? The voice chip, the voice samples are better on the Super Nintendo for that game, I think. Although they're not great, they aren't arcade perfect, but it's I'm used to it, so you win. Sagat Ryu. Thailand, Guile, Dalzim. Street Fighter 2 is great, and then the later renditions that they have on the Super Nintendo were just got so much better. Like New Challengers is great, Anniversary Edition, World Warrior. They get better. Turbo, Super Street Fighter Turbo. Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo is even better than the original Street Fighter 2 on the Super Nintendo. It's just, with each iteration, they got better. Now, personally, I like New Challengers because it basically is the most complete version of Street Fighter 2 on the Super Nintendo, because you get all the boss characters, plus you get Wu Fei, the Bruce Lee analog, you get DJ... You get Cammy. You get who else? Shit, I'm blanking. But you get all those. Oh, T-Hawk. You get T-Hawk. So you get Balrog, Vega, Sagat, M. Bison, plus T-Hawk, Cammy. You get the whole Street Fighter 2 roster.
People get mad.
You get a lot of characters in that.
People get mad. They scream a lot at people they play online, but Those computers are cheaper than any human you'll play against.
Oh yeah. The computer on especially Capcom fighting games, the
Uh,
computer always cheated because the computer could pull off
I
those
think
attacks
that's
without doing.
SNES.
Yeah, the computer could pull off those special attacks
Yeah,
without
I
doing
was
the
about to
button
say that there's
combinations.
always these bosses that, well, and those bosses, well, I think that's what some people would call SNES cheap.
Yeah.
I mean SNK cheap.
I mean, like, I would say I still think that M. Bison is like one of my favorite bosses in video games. Cause in later Street Fighter 2s, he would pop up and then he'd throw off that cape. And it's like, look, when M. Bison throws up that cape, someone's about to get their ass beat. Cause he's getting serious. He's got that spinning thing, that cheap ass slide kick.
yeah.
It's just great.
Hmm.
I just really love the the Super Nintendo just had a really great library. I would say the only weak spot of the Super Nintendo's library is that it didn't have any of the higher quality sports games that the Sega Genesis had. But you have to remember, like Sega basically was money hatting a lot of those, doing like sweetheart deals with EA to get a lot of those games on the system.
Oh, so Sega was the original money hatter.
Well, it wasn't like they were paying for it, but they basically like cut them slack on their licensing fees, which is why those EA cartridges look so different from the other Sega cartridges. And Nintendo was like, we ain't playing that game, so that's why you got shitty ass sports game ports on the NES. Although there were some good sports games on the NES, like Ken Griffey Baseball. Like I said, NBA Jam. NBA Jam was great on the NES. So when people are like, you couldn't have your system. No, they're good games on both systems. But
we
SNES was my favorite.
I didn't really know about the console wars. Probably, people weren't really weird about consoles, and until probably the GameCube era. At least that's when I started seeing it, where people were like, "Well, the GameCube's for little kids, and the PS2 is for people who are older," and stuff like that. Like there wasn't really much of a console war. I just played whatever anybody had. Go to your friend's house.
Yeah,
they
play
had
what
that
they
console.
had there. Yeah. Well, the thing is, they call it the console wars back in the day, but really, what it was about was, what it really boiled down to was it was about, like these console makers fought with the best thing in the world, which was their games, right? It was about the games,
Yeah.
like people during the 5th gen, like people who were talking shit. Like the reason the Sega Saturn didn't do well in America is because Bernie Stolar basically deflated confidence that the Sega gamers had, and Sega made a lot of bad decisions with the Sega Genesis, like releasing like the 32X, and then a few months after that announcing the Sega Saturn. Like, just doing stupid shit like that. But really, the console war, especially the 16-bit console war, going back to the Super Nintendo, like Sega and Nintendo, yeah, they had commercials, but really they were fighting against each other with games, right? It boiled down to games. And unfortunately for Sega, like the Sega Genesis came out in 89, 88, and it was using hardware that was developed in like 1980. So that was top of the line in like 1980. Whereas Nintendo was using hardware that was top of the line in like 89. So, 89, 90. So, like the Sega Genesis, like it's amazing what the Sega Genesis is capable of now. Because you look at games that come out for the Sega Genesis now, and it's like, man, this is some old ass fucking hardware, but these games look great, like Paprium or Solar Pier or Pier Solar.
Well, games that never came to the States.
Yeah. Or, games
Of
that never
course.
came to the States, or it's like, man, like I saw a demo for Super Star Wars on the Sega Genesis, and it's amazing what they were able to do with no modes. Shit that you could do on the Super Nintendo with Mode 7, there were no modes. They tried their damnedest to get it to go on the Sega Genesis. They got kind of close. I mean, it's not the same, but it's kind of close.
Yeah, they had to build everything from the ground up back in the days. It's not like this where people can buy pre-made engines, or where you have pre-made engines, sort of a one size fits all scenario with an engine.
Yeah.
They every time they made a new game, they had to make a new engine.
Yep. Or they would make a game for the system and then just reuse that engine again, just swapping out assets. That's what Capcom did. That's what that's what JVC did with the Super Star Wars games. They made an engine to make the original Super Star Wars. Then they took that engine, spiced it up, and made Super Empire Strikes Back. And then they used that same engine for Super Return of the Jedi. Then they took that engine and made the Indiana Jones trilogy. So they used the same engine for 4 games. And that's called using your budget, children.
Yeah. It's like Hanna-Barbera, always using the same sound effects in every cartoon that they make. No.
Yeah.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, and they just kind of dealt with it. It's like, hey, they're using the same track over and over again. It's like that old music video on like old Cartoon Network where they're like, why do I just keep on going in circles, going in circles, going in circles, and Hanna-Barbera characters like walking the same background over and over and over again. I can't escape.
You'll see, like in the Flintstones, right? Those are Hanna-Barbera cartoon.
Yep.
Yeah, you'll see every time they're driving, it's the same background. They'll have repeating images in the background.
Yeah.
It's like, well, animation isn't cheap, guys.
And Hanna-Barbera was pinching that penny till it was about to explode.
Yeah.
I'm saying they were cheap. They were really, really cheap. I loved them, but they were cheap. Yes, I love Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Sue me.
Yeah. Pretty good.
Not all of them. I don't love all of them,
Yeah.
but a lot of the earlier ones, I'm a huge fan.
The one with the talking car and the kids doing solving mysteries or something like that.
Something Phantom. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Because basically, when Scooby-Doo came out, they just basically copied that formula into other things. That's why you had Jabberjaw, Josie and the Pussycats, something Phantom.
Not Danny Phantom, but it was
It wasn't. This was
Confederate Phantom,
well before Danny Phantom. Let me look it up.
I said-
Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't Danny Phantom. I said it was something like maybe Confederate Phantom. I'm just thinking here.
No, it was Funky Phantom.
Hey, that was
It was called Funky Phantom.
okay.
Yeah, Funky
Okay,
Phantom.
I was a little off.
Yeah,
I was off since I was trying to think about it.
yeah, they just kept on doing that. They just kept on, just stealing stuff. I mean, I like Hanna-Barbera, but people forget Hanna-Barbera got their start with the Rough and Ready show, and then Huckleberry Hound and Quick Draw McGraw, and then the Flintstones. But before all of that, they used to work at I think it was MGM, where they started with Tom and Jerry. Or was it Warner Brothers? I can't remember. Tom and Jerry. Racist ass Tom and Jerry. Tom and Jerry. And they did that shit for 18 years. 1940 to 1958. So.
That's pretty long for an animated series to go.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep it
at the
real.
time.
I like Tom and Jerry. Even though it was kind of racist, especially in the beginning with like Mammy and all that stuff. Thomas, I told you to catch that mouse,
Oh
Thomas.
yeah.
It's like, this is really kind of racist, but I still like. It's kind of like watching Three Stooges, where they have the black guy come in to the house that the Three Stooges are working on, and the guy like they're tearing up the house, and the guy's like, "This house done gone crazy," runs out. I'm like, man, this is bad, but it's still kind of funny.
Yeah.
I feel kind of bad, but like, here's the thing for me and offensive jokes. If it's funny, I will give you some slack. But if it is not funny, it's even worse because you thought it was funny and you didn't even think out what you were putting down. Like, what's it called? What's the name of that movie?
Transformers 2?
No. Yeah, that wasn't funny. Like the two Negro bots with the gold teeth and the chains. I'm like, so literally whoever wrote this script saw this, I'm putting it on Michael Bay. You looked at the script and thought this shit was funny. And it's not. But then you have the shit with Robert Downey Jr. in that movie where it's like, hey man, don't go full retard. Like Robert Downey Jr.'s in blackface, but it's funny. It's legitimately funny. I'm like, I can't get mad because it's funny. And it's not picking on black people. It's picking on actors who are way too into method acting. That's what's funny about it. He's like, hey man, what do you mean y'all? It's like, what do you mean y'all? You're not black. Like the one black guy there is like, you're not black. It's like it's making fun of method actors who are way too into, like, go way too far with method acting. Like Daniel Day-Lewis, who when he did that movie My Left Foot, like he had people feeding him and he was sitting in the chair and like, come on man, you don't need to do that shit to be a great actor.
Oh, you're talking about that movie where the guy's paralyzed or whatever? And
yeah. He, like, Daniel Day-Lewis, in order to get into that role, literally sat in a chair and had people bathe him and wash him. I was like, dude, you don't have to do all that in order to play that role.
Yeah.
That's a bridge too far, in my opinion.
Right over the top acting.
I mean, look, the man won, forget what it's called. He won an Academy Award for it, so, an Oscar. So, I mean, shit, I mean, I can't get mad. I mean, it got results, but it's like, that's the point. It's like Tropic Thunder. Tropic Thunder is a parody of Hollywood, Like, Jack Black's character is a parody of comedic actors wanting to be in serious shit. Mike Pacino, the black rapper, is a parody of rappers wanting to go into acting. Ben Stiller is a parody of action stars of franchises wanting to change up their image into something else and it not working. And Robert Downey Jr. is a parody of the method actor who just, who goes way too far with method acting. It's like, like they were like, Kirk Lazarus has had surgery in order to make himself look like a black man. and if someone said, hey man, is blackface ever okay? I'm like, well, it depends. If you're not an actor and you're not, like, it depends if you're doing it for satire. And, in that movie, it's done for satire. It's done pretty well. So I can't get mad. But anyway, have we waxed poetic enough about Super Nintendo? Anyone else have any thing they want to say about the Super Nintendo that they're like they have to get out about the SNES before we move on to the next topic? Anything? Anyone have anything they want to announce? Any complaints you want to get out about the Super Nintendo before we move on to the next topic? It doesn't have to be a serious complaint. It could be a joke complaint, like, you had too many fucking RPGs.
I guess the remodel looked. I don't like the way the remodel looked, like the older version.
Yeah, I agree. I like the older version of the Super Nintendo as well. But then again, I don't like change.
I don't know. The remodel just felt cheaper.
Yeah.
Felt cheaper. You know.
I mean, that's kind of a problem with Nintendo. Whenever they do a remodel of their console, the remodel typically, like a downward, cheaper budget model of the remodel always kind of looks like they were clearly trying to meet a budget. You know, like the Wii Mini. Ugh.
Yeah. Oh, who dropped out?
I didn't drop out.
I didn't drop out. Oh, I think Jewel dropped out accidentally.
I guess she'll come back when she can. So anyway, that being said, I guess we can move on to the next topic, which is something a little bit near and dear to my heart. Or maybe not so near and dear to my heart. More Activision Blizzard BS.
What did they do this time?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Activision Blizzard, you know, in the wake of, you know, all the stuff that's been coming out about them and everything like that, you know what? They're big. Here's their big thing that they decided to do in order to show solidarity for people who've been victimized. They are no longer naming Overwatch characters after real people.
What?
Yeah, I know, man. You know, people being sexually harassed, people of color and women and other minorities being, you know, essentially having their you know, being you know, shut down so they can't, you know, you know, get promoted in the organization. You know, hiring a union busting law firm who has in the past represented the descendants of Nazis against people who, you know, want to sue the companies that they own who made their money through forced labor of people who were in concentration camps. You know, no, forget all that. You know what we're going to do? We're not going to... Jesse McCree will no longer be named Jesse McCree.
That is some. What do you say about that? What do you say about that?
Yeah, that's how we're gonna help our disenfranchised employees who are just getting shafted left and right.
I mean, you can't sit there and be like, well, you know, talk about how you're for the little people and then completely screw over the little people, I guess. Or
I mean, you can.
I
mean, Amazon does it all the time. We totally care about our workers. That's why we're wage thefting them. That's why we keep people from getting more than 39 hours. Because let's say you're scheduled for 28 or 32 hours, and don't take any overtime that's going to lead you to go over 40, because then you're a full-time employee and you can get benefits.
Mm.
I mean, you know, but they're totally for the little people. I'm being facetious, of course. Because I'm a facetious bastard. But anyway, Activision Blizzard has continued their tone deaf. Is that the word? Tone deaf? Yeah, tone deaf um, war against being of accountability, because that's the only way I can really look at it. They're fighting a war against being held accountable for being the douchebags that they are.
Yeah.
You know, like really, like there's a certain point when you got to know when the you know, um, wrap things up. You know, there's a certain point where you got to say, you know what, it was a good ride. It's time to pack our shit and move on. And if I was Bobby Kotick and the heads of Blizzard, I'd just be like, okay, now it's time to pack our shit and move on. You know?
Yep.
Because
they're not gonna do all that.
I mean, like they had a good run. You know, like Bobby Kotick, I think this year got his bonus of like 155 million. You know, Bobby Kotick will be fine, okay? And those people, those executives will be fine. But it's time to wrap it up and move on. Okay, you had a good run. It's someone else's turn. All right, it's time to wrap the. You know, it's like that. It's like that Chappelle Show sketch where it's like the wrap it up box. Wrap it up. Wrap it up. You know.
Yeah, they've been caught. They're habitual line steppers. They gotta go.
Yeah.
They gotta leave.
It's time to wrap that shit up. You know, be like that Puerto Rican gentleman. Hey, you need to wrap that gavel up, B. Wrap it up. The end of the sketch, Dave Chappelle's with that chick. Yeah. Oh. Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. You need to wrap it up. Oh. That's a wrap. Kobe. Yeah, it's time to wrap it up. Okay, it's time to wrap it up and let's move on to something else. Because at this point, I mean, where else can you go? You know?
Yeah.
But anyway, I think we have gone on far enough with that line of questioning. I think we don't need to keep it going with that, you know, with those people. So with that being said, I guess we can move on to some other cool shit, which is talking about stuff that isn't so, you know, dark and gritty. People getting shot, killed, murdered. I guess we can talk about some other aspects of gaming. So what have you guys been playing lately? What have you been getting into?
I don't know. I'm just screwing around in Ultra Street Fighter 4, but playing through Psychonauts. I finally looked up a guide to get past the Napoleon part. It's actually pretty easy to get past once you know how it works.
Oh yeah.
You're like, oh, okay. But yeah, then I played that Edgar section that you were talking about last week, and I thought, man, after I got through that, I played through that whole scenario last night. It's like, man, that's good. I haven't seen writing like this in a video game that really captivated me. That well placed twist.
I know. You're like, man, I gotta kill this bull. I gotta kill this bull. Then it's like, wait a second. The bull. The bull's not the villain. I mean, it should have been obvious if you're anti animal cruelty person and bullfighting.
Yeah.
The bull's not the bad guy. The matador is.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, okay, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've recently gotten back into SWTOR, Star Wars: The Old Republic, and I've been enjoying it. I've been having a blast, a blast. Um, especially with experience boosts, which they're really generous in giving you experience boosts, so you can level up really fucking quickly. Uh, like, like it's like, wow, this is ridiculous how quickly I'm leveling up. So you don't have to spend a lot of time. Like it's a lot less grindy now, than it was when it first came out. Mostly because, they want you to spend cartel coins, but the joke's on them. I subscribed, so I did the 6-month subscription. So I you get a set amount of cartel coins every month any goddamn way. Like you get like 1,500 every month, regardless of what happens. So the joke's on them. I'm not buying any damn cartel coins. Ha ha ha, fuckers. I'll tell you, I'm waiting for. I'll tell you some games I'm looking forward to. I'm waiting for when they're going to come out with the release date for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. I was about to say Shredder's Revenge. Because I saw
that game looks fantastic.
I know. They've got April O'Neil as a playable character. They've got her beating the shit out of people with her mic and with her camera and her yellow. They're using like yellow jumpsuit late 80s, early 90s April O'Neil, the hot April O'Neil.
Yeah.
The hot. I mean, all of the April O'Neils were hot. I'm not gonna lie. The Mirage Comics black April O'Neil with the Jerry curl was hot too. April O'Neil's always been hot in almost every incarnation she's had. She's been hot. Speaking of which, Smash Brothers clone that I've actually been looking forward to is Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl.
Yeah.
Which is just, it's going to have a lot of old characters. It's going to have Nigel Thornberry from the Wild Thornberries, Powdered Toast Man from Ren and Stimpy, Oblina from All Real Monsters, Lincoln and Lucy Loud from the Loud House, never heard of it. Part of the cast of SpongeBob SquarePants, so they'll probably have Sandy Cheeks, SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward. Maybe Mr. Crab. TMNT, Danny Phantom, Invader Zim, Helga, and even Reptar. Yeah. I'm like, Reptar, it's been a while, but hey, if you guys want to bring back Reptar, I'm not going to get mad about it. Reptar. That show was such my age group show because... we could relate to it because, like, Reptar was their version of Godzilla.
Yeah.
And that show was great until they added Baby Dill. Baby Dill ruined that show.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about... It's just a lot of American comedies in general. Problem with a lot of American television, you can argue with anime too. Like a lot of the Shonen Jump stuff, like One Piece, Dragon Ball Z, and Naruto. It's just they don't know when to end.
Yeah.
It's like they got to keep squeezing money out of these shows, and it's kind of like it's okay to have an ending, guys.
Rugrats could have kept on going. The show just the quality of the storytelling in the show went down when they added Baby Dill because it broke the whole point of the show. Because the whole point of the show was you have Tommy and the babies who are babies, and the adults don't know what the fuck they're saying, but to them they're having coherent conversations. Right?
Yeah.
And Angelica's just old enough to where she can understand what they're saying, but like, she's old enough that she's older than them, but she's young enough that she can still kind of understand what they're saying. So the whole premise is that babies have this their imagination has this whole world ahead of them. And it, like, when you're a baby, when you're a kid, you understand that. And then they add baby Dill, who the babies don't fucking understand, which makes
Yeah,
no
that didn't
goddamn
make any.
sense.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense.
It's like you've broken your own logic, and then you turn Tommy from being an only child, which worked for him as a character, to having a baby brother, which just, in my opinion, it ruined the show. It ruined it. It's like, okay, I don't like this character. I find him annoying.
I just need to stop adding characters and killing off characters, and
What I've
just
just-
TV, like,
What I've discovered is when they add a baby to a show, it's all downhill. It's like Fairly Odd
Yeah.
Parents was great until they had Baby Cosmo. Not Baby Cosmo. Baby. I forgot that kid's name, but when they added him, it's like, well, we're fucked now.
yeah. I mean, he knew when Growing Pains ended when another when you know the wife had a new baby. It's like, well, this show's almost over.
Yeah, when they add a new baby, it's like, oh, it's over. It's over. I mean, how do you keep a long-running show fresh? I'll tell you this much: you don't add a baby. Don't add a baby. Now, if there was always a chance that characters would get together and get married and have a kid, makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
if you're gonna add a baby, do it that way. Like, you know, if you have a, you know, because some shows characters get older, you know, they leave
Things
the
happen
house,
to characters, right?
and then they get married, they have their own kid, they have a baby, and then you could just do it that way rather than do it the way a lot of these other shows do it.
Well, most of these shows seem to add a baby because they want to appeal to a younger audience or they want to shake things up. And I'm like, that's not how you do it. Now, if you have a script, a long-term script for where you want your show to go already, and you add a kid, it makes sense, right? It's like, okay, we know that eventually these two characters that we've had 2 seasons or 3 seasons doing they get together and then they get married and then they have a kid in season 5 after they've been married for however long in season 4. That makes sense. They have a kid, you know, typically speaking, to married people get married, they're going to have a kid because that's why people get married. So that if any children are born, there will be legal recourse for what their status will be. That's why people get married. It's kind of weird, there are some people who get married and they'll be married for like 10, 15 years and don't have any kids. And then, 16 years pass and they have a kid. So, but typically people get married and they have kids. But anyway, all I'm saying is this. It's, I'm not.
Things happen.
Yeah. I wish they'd get better with that. But anyway, I don't think we'll do an a-hole of the week just because, I mean, if we did an a-hole of the week, we just have to talk about how Activision Blizzard's been fucking up yet again. And I'm tired of talking about them. So they automatically get a-hole of the week. So fuck them. So we have 10 minutes left in the cast. So before we move on, anything you guys want to bring attention to, you think some people need to hear about, people need to talk about, games that people are kind of sleeping on a little bit?
Was there anything at Gamescom anything else at Gamescom that stuck out to you that we didn't mention in the last stream?
I mean, I already talked about Saints Row, the reboot of Saints Row. That was kind of interesting to me. That's about it. Oh, Midnight Suns, Marvel Midnight Sun, where, I mean, the trailer, the music for the trailer is shit, but I'm kind of interested in, like, a good Marvel game, because we haven't had a good Marvel game in a long time.
I just want to talk about that Ninja Turtles game. It looks like a fully realized Super Nintendo game with modern technology. It's like,
And even got some new characters to boot for. for
Yeah.
that one. So, oh boy.
I'm down with it.
Yeah, I heard it was gonna get pushed back to 2022. It's like, oh, gotta wait even longer.
I'll wait.
Yeah.
I'll wait, damn it. I'll wait.
Boy, you're a patient person. Sometimes.
There's so many damn games coming out. There's so many damn games coming out. It's not even funny. Like these are the games I have coming out that I'm looking forward to playing. Okay. There is let's see what else. What else is there? And these are like I have like sorry, and these are okay. These are the games that I have currently that I recently have come into my that I'm looking forward to purchasing. Okay, Star Wars. Or actually, I'm playing that right now. Pathfinder: Wrath of the Righteous. Okay. That's the sequel to Pathfinder Kingmaker. Okay. All right, and you know that's going to be a hundreds of hours game. Uh, I recently started Psychonauts 2, King's Bounty 2. Let's see what else we got. And guess what's coming out in September? Tales of
What's that?
Arise.
Oh yeah, I'm like actually excited for that one. That one looks pretty good.
So that's a 50-hour game. Plus, you know it's going to be a Tales game where you can replay it with like all the shit you unlocked. If you have a high enough grade, you can go to the grade store at the end of the game and purchase that shit. So that's just more shit to own. Like
That's so much. That's so many things of quality to pick from, right?
and you know, well, I don't know how quality it is, but I mean, I haven't played a bad Tales game yet. Well, actually, let me take that back. I have played a bad Tales game. There's what's it called? Shit. There's Tales of Berseria and Tales of Xillia 1 and 2.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Those games were bad. They were cheap. They just felt really fucking cheap. Like you could tell they were stretching that engine as far as they could. And I'm not a big fan of Tales of Zestiria either. I know some people will be like, what do you mean you don't like Tales of Zestiria? I don't like Tales of Zestiria. I don't think it's a very good game. Yeah, I said it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I heard nothing but good things about Tales of Exilia, but you didn't like it, huh?
Xillia? Well, I didn't like either of those games. Mostly because, like, if I'm playing a Tales game, I want to have a world map to travel. And Xillia has you moving from area to area to area. You're not traveling a huge world map. You're traveling like little small areas from area.
Oh, that's
yeah,
that's cheap.
you know.
I mean, well, yeah, you want an RPG to connect like the world to have a cohesive world that you can,
yeah,
you know.
and that's where I was like, okay, so you're not gonna have a massive area for me to traverse. It's just like little tiny area to little tiny area to little tiny area. That's what you're telling me. I turned into Jeff Keighley there. So if people don't want to, you know, spend a lot of money on this, that, or the other, they just stick with their Xbox 360s. I remember when we were watching that, I was like, yeah,
He's fired.
he's not going to have a job next month. And it literally, the next month, his ass was gone. I was like, yeah, man, you fucked up, son. you, there are moments when you can tell someone fucked up, and that was one of them. I was like, eh. fucked up, dude. Why would you do that? But yeah, he fucked up. I don't know what to say. He fucked up. Sometimes people fuck up all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And he fucked up bad. Really, really bad.
Oof.
Heart our soul.
But anyway, so that being said, anything you guys want to pimp out before we wrap things up?
Nothing too much, but I think if anything, I know that you're probably happy Bravely Default 2 or another RPG is coming out soon for you. Or at
Yeah,
least for you anyways, right?
I'm glad it's hitting PC because I just didn't really want to spend a lot of time grinding for shit.
Yeah, time to use cheat engine to increase the experience and give myself all the money.
Because that game is really grindy. Like Bravely Default is really grindy. Like none of those Bravely Default games have not been grindy.
I just don't have time to grind in RPGs anymore.
I don't mind grinding, but Bravely Default is just... It's a little bit too much. And like when I say grindy, I don't mean like typical RPG grind. I mean you have to level up individual jobs. You have to get job points for each job, and that's too much. That's a little bit too much for me.
Yeah.
That's a little bit, I don't mind normal grinding. I mean, hell, fuck, I just told you guys, I've been playing SWTOR. That's very grindy. It's an MMO. But I mean, that's like typical grind. It's like, okay, I go to an area, I do all the missions, and then I start the story mission. And I have an XP boost on that gives you a 35% boost to the amount of experience you get from your mission. So like a 10,000 XP mission gives you like 1,300 something. Okay, I can deal with that. That doesn't bother me. I'm not bothered by that. But when there's each individual job is grindy like that, I can't. That's too much. That's a bridge too far. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When shit's too grindy, I can't deal with it. Like when I was younger and I had more free time to play video games, it wasn't that bad. But I don't have that type of time anymore. So, like I don't have thousands of hours to, hundreds of hours to play those games. I can't do it. So, anything that lets me basically do that shit for cheap, I'm okay with it. And so I know some people would be like, no, don't. Come on, man. I don't mind. I don't mind. I just don't, Like, okay, like the first Bravely Default, I played that on my 3DS, and when I had to get those, when they were like trying to sell me on that little, in order for you to use these special potions in battle, you can put it into sleep mode, and it was easy. Just put my thing in sleep mode, leave it plugged in, charge, and then I could get all that cool shit. But now it's on a console, and I can't really do that, I don't think. So it's like, I don't have time for that. There's other shit I want to do with my time than sitting there and trying to, grind each individual job. From the demo that I played on the Switch, there's a boss that you can fight later on in the game that is weak against a certain type of attack that you don't even get access to until after you beat them, like the next area. I'm like, that's just shitty game design. So
Yeah.
So getting on PC where I can like boost how much experience I get and stats and stuff like that. Because for me, I play most RPGs these days for story. I don't play them for challenge. I want to see what happens, what's the story and all that type of stuff. So for me, like I'm not, oh my god, I have to reach this level of whatever. I'm like, I'm okay. I'm just trying to get to the end of the game. That's all I'm trying to do.
Bullshitter.
Anyway, that's the end of this cast. Anything you guys want to pip up for wrap things up?
I
Yes,
think I'm
no,
alright.
maybe so. All right, so that's the end of the cast. Thank you for joining. We will be back next week at
A new month,
7:30. Yes, the
no less.
beginning of the new month, September 1st, which ironically we won't have Labor Day until the 6th, but it is what it is. But September 1st of next week, where we will have hopefully new topics. I don't know what's going to happen, but there's always some news happening in gaming. So with that being said, this is the podcast. Right?
One thing I'm hoping for, we won't have to talk about Activision Blizzard.
I mean,
Yeah, we'll probably have to talk about
I
it.
hope so, but they keep on fucking up. So it's...
Let's knock on wood and hope for it until then. So if anything, thank you everybody for watching the BS Busters Annually Podcast. Don't forget to rate, comment, share, subscribe. Don't forget email, Twitter, and other methods like Discord.
That is correct. And with that, peace, good night, and have a good day.